But is there a general rule of thumb for anybody out there who's tuning in? If a lead comes in, is it 5 touches? Is it 20 touches before on an average conversion? Because I think that's a number that people need to have in the back of their head, that it doesn't just pop right then and there. Awesome, everybody. Hey, as always, super excited about this. Gus and I are going to be hanging out for a couple minutes here. Just as people are pouring in, I cannot thank you enough for tuning in, the LCA family, to another incredible webinar and presentation by the one, the only Gustavo. His friends call him Gus. But Gus, it's always an honor and a pleasure to chat with you, my friend. This is great.
Yeah, thanks so much. Appreciate it. It's always fun. Would love to say, hi, everybody. Hey, Michael. Hey, no, Michael. Michael, how you doing, man? I see folks in here. So I guess we're among friends, aren't we, right? Everybody knows each other here on this webinar. Welcome, everybody. If you can please drop a line, tell us where you're from, what market you serve. That's great. If you serve multiple markets, drop them all in there. Why not? We'd love to know.
Beautiful, beautiful. And Gus, we've got a jam-packed topic as always, and what better man to go through this particular topic than you yourself, but really going through the process of how to blow up your business with an ISA. And like I said, in my humble opinion, there's no one better on the planet than you, my friend, to go through this exact topic, running the show of PowerISA and everything associated. So gosh, Gus, I can't wait to dive in.
Yeah, definitely. It's a topic that I was thinking about, as we head into September, we're going to be the last few weeks of the summer. We're beginning the fall season. We're beginning the last chunk of the year, right? We're inching towards the final quarter of the year. For a lot of folks, it's about closing out 2021 the strongest way possible, right? Because what you're doing now is going to impact the last few months of the year. And more importantly, sitting down and planning out 2022, because what we discuss and think about and plan for in September and October, and we start implementing in October, we're going to see the results of that in January, right? That's going to start to see results from that plan, that activity, that action we're going to take. We're going to start to see those activities result in something in January. So September, October for me is always about planning and getting ready for the next year. That was kind of the inspiration behind the topic today. Hey, folks, we're thinking about making a change, setting a big goal for 2022. In real estate, everybody knows this. Whenever you ask someone, what's your goal for 2022? I'm sure the next year, the way I would answer it is, I would add up the amount of deals I did one year, and I would double it for the next year, right? That's the standard, thing that we always do when we're setting goals. And that's all fun and fine. But the problem is you've got to make sure that you're taking action and you're doing the activities that can generate that result, right? And it might not just be doing double of everything. That might not be the answer, right? Because if, for example, I built my business as a real estate agent by calling my sphere. I had a list of 300 people, and I would generate about 30 transactions a year from just calling that list. Wow. 3 to 4 times a year, right? 3 to 4 times a year. 30 times. It was pretty standard. I knew how to do it. I could do it day in and day out, right? If I wanted to achieve 60 transactions, it wouldn't be just calling that list 6 or 8 times a year. It doesn't translate into doubling the production, right? So what does translate into doubling the production? And that's where we can get to a bunch of different topics. Is it online lead generation? Is it prospecting? Is it advertising? Is it networking events? What is it, right? Door knocking, all of these things can come in as different lead generation activities. One of those things you can do is work with an ISA. And that's what I want to talk about today, right? If you are discussing, thinking, planning, considering bumping up those goals for next year, I want to put one more item on the menu for you, which is having an ISA on your team. That is really the topic of today. That is how to blow up your business with an ISA. And I'm going to run through a couple of the top main projects and activities that an ISA can do that can have the maximum impact for you. So you guys can consider that. And as you plan out next year, as you plan out the end of this year, consider an ISA as part of that plan. So here we go, guys. Number one. So
Love it.
The first thing I want to kick this off with is kind of fundamentally, when an ISA joins your team, when you hire an ISA, they are there to solve one of two problems, right? Typically, or maybe both, right? They're typically focused on one of two things. Number one, they're either going to help you convert leads you're already generating, right? A conversion-focused ISA. They're just grabbing an existing list and they're just nurturing, they're qualifying. If they're brand new inbound leads, they're responding right away to them, right? They are focused on, you know what? I'm already generating leads. The pipeline's open. I'm cranking it up, and I need help with that conversion. And if you're a team leader, if you've generated online leads, you know what I'm talking about, right? There's a certain percentage of those folks that are going to convert right away. It's a small percentage, but there's a percentage that you just have to call a couple of times, have a good conversation, and boom, you're off to the races with them. For the other 98% of those leads you're going to get, it is a grind. You've got to follow up. You've got to call them. You've got to engage them. And that's where the ISA can help a ton. In fact, ISA can do both of those things. They can qualify the brand new ones coming in, and they can implement that follow-up process to get those existing leads to convert, right? And we've seen the numbers. We've seen, you know, the slogans, the sayings. The fortune is in the follow-up. Well, I'm here to tell you that is 100% true, right? And I've got some really, really specific examples. I'm going to start with that first umbrella topic, conversion-focused ISA, conversion-focused ISA. And we talked about a really simple activity. The brand new inbound leads you've got, you have your ISA doing two things, calling them right away, right? Calling them as soon as possible. If they're reaching out through Messenger or through SMS, responding through SMS, responding through Messenger. I think one of the really interesting things I see nowadays is that some folks kind of assume that an ISA is just for phone calls. That's not correct, folks, right? The ISA is there to interact with the lead, qualify, convert the lead. That can be on the phone, which is great. I love the phone. I think it's a great way to convert. But I also, I'm going to be honest with you guys, my phone doesn't ring during the day. It doesn't ring. I have my phone on silent all the time because I'm talking to clients, I'm doing work, I'm on a webinar, I'm doing all these things. So the best way to reach me, Gustavo, and I'm not a young guy, I'm an older millennial, I'm 40 guys, I'm not a super young guy here, is through direct messaging on social media and text message. That I just had a call today with, you know, my insurance guy. We're changing some policies, adding some new things for me and my business. And he told me, this is funny, Gus, the only way you respond to me is via text. Exactly, right?
There you go.
Got it. That's the point. You're correct. And I was actually, he chuckled like, yeah, it's so hard to get you on the phone. 100%. By design, that's hard to get you on the phone. So your ISA needs to adapt to that kind of a consumer. I am seeing markets right now, Greg, where ISAs are setting 50% of their appointments not on the phone.
Wow.
Non-phone. Facebook Messenger, texting, SMS. Instagram Messenger, you know, DMs on all these different whatever social media platform you want, Instagram, TikTok, Twitter, sending them through direct message and texting, 50%. And I think that's it. And some parts of the country are on the bleeding edge of that trend. Some are not. You're going to see 80-90% of appointments still set over the phone. I'm not saying I'm not in favor of that. I'm not against that. You should service the market that you're in, and you should service the demographic that you service, right? Just recognize that the ISA can help regardless of how the lead wants to interact with you, right? I think it's really important to understand. Lead comes in, however it comes in, ISA tries to contact them any which way possible, and they should interact with them however they're most responsive. Meet the lead where they are. Meet the lead where they are. Yes, all of these different channels should lead to a phone conversation or a Zoom call or an in-person. Yes, that's the whole point. Right. But you should start and respond to them and follow up with them in the medium and the channel that they are most comfortable with and they're most likely to be responsive to you. Unbelievably important to understand that, right? And to make sure your ISA knows that, is trained that way, and can convert leads regardless of which way they're coming in, right? So they're responding to those inbound leads, new inbound leads, qualifying them, setting the appointment, or setting them on that longer term follow-up plan, guys. Longer term follow-up plan. Again, we're talking about conversion focused ISAs. This is a big part of their job, that initial qualification. And then what do? They're doing their daily tasks. Daily tasks are activities they set a week ago, a month ago, 6 months ago, right? They're following up with those leads. They are checking in, right? Hey, you know, and I heard a great example about this today. A realtor that was killing it with Facebook leads, and they said, hey, every Monday morning, depending on what happened in the weekend before, and I love this, by the way, she would say, if it was a 95-degree weekend, this is Georgia, like, you know, it gets hot there, 95 degrees and warm outside, and humidity is like through the roof, she'd message people in her pipeline that Monday, how's it going? How did you stay cool this weekend? Wasn't that crazy? She would message that to dozens and dozens of people. Like the same, just checking in, right? And like clockwork, 1 or 2 people every single Monday would message back, other than their typical response. Oh, by the way, I did talk to that lender you recommended. I finally had that conversation. Oh, that's great. And she would move those people forward. Not everybody, guys. Not everybody. But doing those little simple check-ins sometimes helps push things forward with the people that are the most motivated ones, right? Find an excuse to reach out to them. The ISA should be following up with people, asking questions, seeing where they are, offering items of value, right, to them. What's an item of value? Value, man, like, you know, your head can explode. It can be a Zoom class you're teaching that month. Offer it to everyone in your pipeline. That's great. It can be a special offer that your lender has, a special offer that someone in your sphere has. That's a great one too. It can be your free market report you just generated that week. It can be, hey, guess what? A testimonial. I just, you know, sold this home in, you know, in 5 hours for this many offers, you know, and the owner, and I went against what the owner wanted, and we got them even more money, right? So they followed my lead, and I was able to get them an even better deal. And that check out this testimonial. All those little nuggets help continue the conversation, help nurture the leads. Nurturing doesn't just mean hey, just check it in, how's it going? I mean, that's one way to do it, right? And maybe that'll work, maybe that won't. But a really professional, awesome way to do follow-up is by adding that value, by asking contextual questions like, hey man, how'd you stay cool over that weekend? That's a little bit different than how you're doing, right? It's a little bit like, it's a better conversation starter. It can get people to engage with you in a little bit more of a real way. And it can start them to know, like, and trust you, right? Which is the whole goal of this thing, right? We want them to know, like, and trust us, because when they come in that pipeline, they're unmet. They don't know who Greg is. They don't know who Gus is, right? So having an ISA implement those follow-up plans, long-term follow-up plans, is an unbelievably important activity, okay? New internet leads, great. That's awesome, we get it. And that's probably what people associate those conversion ISAs with the most. Well, I'm here to tell you that there are other ways that those conversion ISAs can work with you, right? And one of the most neglected ways is having them make sure that they follow up with your database, right? That they are calling your database. Yes, it is a very high value activity to have them respond to brand new leads. It is very high conversion, it's very high value, that's great. Following up with those leads, with those relatively new leads, also great activity. But guys, you have to have a plan where your ISA is calling your past clients, your sphere, friends and family, and your old leads, your old unresponsive, crazy leads. And I have 2 case studies to talk to you about, and this is just nuts, right? Of people that were just not making the call and kind of assuming that these old leads were kind of going nowhere. One of them, Rudy and Shannon out of Seattle, Washington. They're clients of ours. We helped them, you know, get their ISA and implement it. They had a database of about 30,000 people, which is like, you know, it's probably in the top 1% of maybe even smaller of realtors. But again, the ISA didn't call all 35,000 people like in a month. That takes probably a better part of a year to get through everyone a few times, right? So that's a huge database. However, they prioritize that list. Okay, let's, you know, prioritize past clients and like A sphere, like they're A people, like the top people that know them, like them, have like talk to them. Great, that's awesome. Past clients and knowns, A class sphere, your closest sphere. Call that, right? So within 60 days, just by calling their database, this ISA set 55 appointments with them.
Wow.
55 appointments, and the majority of those were listing appointments. Because Rudy and Shannon, they're more like a listing focused team, you know, and so that when we're talking to them, it's about listing the home. That's really that's the brand they've built. That's what they help the most with. So they're like, holy cow, they just had not had the time to make those calls. And again, if I had a 30,000 person list, it's very intimidating, Greg, right?
Right.
It's like, and they were generating new online leads too. So the online leads got a lot of their attention. They got a lot of their attention.
Mm-hmm.
But when you have a sphere that's that powerful, right, and that large, even their A sphere and their past clients were hundreds upon hundreds of people, right?
Wow.
They were just also not getting called. So I think that when they segmented their list, there must have still been at least a couple thousand people in that list, right? And it took them a whole couple of months. That's about 45 working days. So it must have been at least 2,000 to 3,000 people. They called and they set 55 appointments off of their list. How much did that list cost them to make? Zero, my man, because they already had it. They already had it. So again, word for the wise, that database that you have, you've got to make sure it's being called on a schedule. If it's your personal sphere, past clients, 3 to 4 times a year, minimum, guys. 3 to 4 times a year, minimum for personal sphere, past clients, friends and family. 3 to 4 times a year, using the script that I recommend, which asks them their help to build your business. Ask them for their help to build your business. Because if they already know I can trust you, they're going to want to help, guys. They're going to want to help. I would make that call 300 times, 3 to 4 times a year. That's, what is that? 1,200 calls in a year? I mean, it sounds intimidating. Across the whole year, it's not a whole lot. It's like maybe a dozen days of work. It's a lot of work, but a dozen days. I can work pretty hard for this days in the year and make 200 grand. That would not bother me, right?
Fair trade.
Yeah, to get those deals done. So make those calls. If it is not your A+ sphere and it is not your past client, it might be like a lot of folks that are listening to this webinar right now. They might have 500 old internet leads, 1,000 old internet leads. And I have a story for you guys too. So another client of mine, Calvin, out of Chattanooga, Tennessee, the premier group out of Chattanooga. He is solely a listing agent. He's specialized. Power to him. I love it when people grab that niche and roll with it. He's had buyers agents on his team. They stick around. They might not, but he's had, I think it's himself as an agent and 2 or 3 administrative assistants, and he just focuses on listing.
Wow.
He had a database, right? And I said, hey, what's this, huge chunk of your database? I think it was almost 1,000 leads at that point. I said, what is this? Oh, those are home valuation leads. Yeah, those are terrible. They kind of go nowhere, right? And it was like, hey, I mean, have you called them? They go, they would come in, they would call, interact, and like many of these home valuations, they're very early in the process. Typically, they can be 6 months out. They can be at least a year out in a lot of cases. So obviously, Calvin had generated a bunch of these leads. He was still generating a small amount every single week, not a ton, but a small amount. And they add up, guys. They add up, right? So he had a bunch of early on, and he started trickling more in there, almost 1,000 leads. So I said, hey, your ISA has to call this list. Yeah, but nothing, right? Because you want to do outbound prospecting, you want to do other things. Okay, that's great. Those are farming activities. Those are activities that give you results in 6 months to a year. If you already have a list of old leads, call that first, please, before you're going to go out and prospect and generate a bunch of, from cold leads. Not cold lists, not even cold leads. Cold lists, generate leads, call the list you already have. Because within 2 weeks, his ISA sends 6 listing appointments from that list. And he didn't even call half the list, right?
Wow.
So those home valuation leads, it's actually a really good thing that they're aged, because a lot of them aren't going to do anything the first 30 days, 60 days, 90 days. They don't want to sell their home right away. They might be very early in the process. So having someone follow up with them at the 6-month mark, at the 12-month mark, unbelievably important, unbelievably powerful. So imagine Calvin, now that he had 6 listing appointments in his back pocket and had now business, had now deals happening. Then he can sit back and put a lot of money into that outbound prospecting, because that takes time to develop, right? So he had plenty of budget to go and do that. He was very happy with that, right? Because he was able to, now he has 3 full-time ISAs calling his old leads and doing outbound prospecting. And I'll get to the prospecting guys. Promise I will. It's on the way. But yeah, that calling the old leads, I cannot tell folks how important that is. I agree with folks that people are saying, oh, but it's, they're not as hot as the new leads. They're not as hot as the new leads, guys. They aren't. But there's some advantages to those leads. There's two main ones that I tell people about. Number one is that you can call a large amount of them very efficiently, right? Because as new leads come in, you have to, it's 1 or 2 a day, or maybe 5 a day. And they're split up during the day, and it's challenging to call them at volume, right? So I understand that the percentages are much higher on those new leads, but even if you get a 1 to 2 or 3% conversion to appointment on a list of old leads, that work is done in a day, done. Here's the appointments, go, right? It's very efficient, right? It can be very efficient, do a lot of really important work very quickly. The second one is, a lot of these leads need time to bake anyway. They need time to bake anyway, right? So, oh man, those leads are no good. They're from 6 months ago. There's a good chunk of them that are buying now. And here's the thing, this is the thing I feel bad about, Greg, because I love to hear this, but I also feel bad for my clients. So it's a little bit of a love-hate reaction that they call those leads that are 6 months old that they never follow up with. And they hear people say, oh, I already bought a home. I mean, it's crazy, right? This happens every single time. And but you know what? People take that and that motivates them even more. Oh, there's real buyers here, right? There's real people that are in these lists that are making purchases. They just didn't buy with me, right? I think that's a big thing. You can take that and get depressed. You can take that and get motivated to work the rest of them, because even if it's an old list, it can be a very efficient activity for your ISA to do to generate a lot of appointments very quickly, right? Off of a large list. So for those two reasons, have those ISAs hit those lists and put them on the schedule. Put them on a schedule. Like I said, close Sphere past clients 3 to 4 times a year. That's usually more than enough. You don't have to call them much more than that. That's great. If you're doing it that much, you're already doing a good job, right? That's okay. Talking about older internet leads, uncontacted leads, it might be the swamp, might be different. If it's home valuation, I would check in quarterly with those, probably every 3 to 4 months, checking in with them as well. If it's buyer leads, those are different. Those can actually be in a relatively shorter time frame, maybe every month, maybe every couple months, to follow up and keep in touch with them. Remember, you always qualify a lot of these leads on their time frame. Oh, I'm a year out. Oh, I'm 6 months out. Take that with a grain of salt, right? That's usually an automatic response. It helps with the really, really hot ones, because people will, they probably won't make it up if they're going to buy within a month or two. That's probably not a fake automatic response. 6 months to a year is like 3 months plus for me. That's all it means. That's all it means. Might be probably more than 3 months out. Probably. That's it. And then we follow up, assuming you got to find out what the real time frame is. You got to find out. It's the challenge. It's part of the game, kind of figuring out where these leads are at, and always finding interesting questions to ask them to try and nail down that time frame, right? For example, I had one client, and this came from them. This did not come from me, where back to school season is coming up, right? So before, like in the middle of the summer, hey, school season's starting out. That's great. Have you thought about where you want your kids to enroll next year, right?
Ooh, good.
And it's like, because again, if you're talking about an area, your market, is there an area where the schools are better, right? Is there like, hey, are you thinking of making that move to this school district in the next year, right? And people might not respond to that, but there's some people that might respond to that. And if you follow that up with a great piece of content about the school district, well, then that's even better, right? Wow. Check this article out about, in my area was the North Shore School District, north of Seattle, right? North Shore was amazing. It was awesome. Okay, great. Here's a great article on the North Shore school system. Here's my interview with a member, a teacher or a principal or someone from the school district telling us how awesome they're doing, or why is it so awesome, right? Why do they have such great ratings, great test scores, all that fun stuff. I think that all that stuff is great. It continues the conversation. And it's relevant to them, and it helps you nail down that timeline and make it more precise. Okay, so that we've covered a pretty broad spectrum of the conversion-based ISAs. Conversion-based ISAs. Okay.
So Gus, before you get to number 2, I just want to just interject real quick, and I want to rebut what you were saying about the past leads not being followed up with. I've heard that time and time again, that there is gold in those hills, and it's unfortunate when you hear it, but I would agree with you. Take that as motivation to be on it more and not say, oh, shoot, I missed all those deals. It's just to say there's money in there. And I agree, the fortunes in the follow-up, you said it once again. You had mentioned the 3 to 4 touch points with the pass list, and you had mentioned the 12 for buyers. But is there a general rule of thumb for anybody out there who's tuning in? If a lead comes in, is it 5 touches? Is it 20 touches before on an average conversion? Because I think that's a number that people need to have in the back of their head, that it doesn't just pop right then and there.
Great. So really great question, Greg. I love you. Okay. I love that you asked that, because we're talking about follow-up plans. We've got to distinguish what we're talking about. Because when you're talking about new internet leads, there is a follow-up process to get them to respond to you, right?
Gotcha.
That tends to be a more intense one. That is a phone call, a text message, an email every day for the first 6 days, 7 days, 10 days. It's very intense at the beginning because you want to get their attention. They've just come off the web. They might have a question. They might have responded to an ad. They want a homes list. They want information on that listing. They came from Zillow and want to go see a property. You've got to be really, really intense. Hit them hard and hit them heavy that first week, right? So we would do 7 touches within 6 days. I know people that do even more than that. I didn't find that having multiple touches a day would necessarily help, but you've got to hit them hard, especially that first week, right? And we would do typically 12 touches the first 30 days, half of which were phone calls. 12 touches the first 30 days, half of which were phone calls. But that follow-up plan ends as soon as they respond. It ends. We stop, and then we just engage with the lead. Texting, trying to get them to answer the questions, qualify them, set the appointment, or if they're on the phone, even better, qualify them, try to set the appointment, or qualify them and see where they're at on their time frame. Are they now business the next 90 days, or are they not, right? Are they not? Are they further out than those 90 days? So that's the second kind of follow-up that we're just talking about, right? So that one is what I mean when you should reach out to them on a monthly basis. That's what I mean by monthly, right? Okay. Yeah, I'm not talking about the brand new fresh leads. No, you got to hit those hard. Got to hit them with everything you've got, right? And go hard against them. Go hard with them to get them to pay attention to you, right? But once you've contacted them, they should go into a monthly follow-up, or depending on where the conversation was, it might be 3 months out, because you know what? Oh yeah, I'm a year out, Gus. I'm not even thinking about this. Yeah, there's a really good reason, or I'm not going to be doing something in the next, even 6 or 12 months. Great, 3 months out, right? But do not put them a year out, right? There should be no follow-ups for you that are a year later. Right? Don't do that, folks, right? Because like I said, anything after 3 months is any time for me. It could be, it's one of those leads you're going to call a year later and they've already bought a home. That's who that's going to be, right? That's why typically, don't make that mistake, but I wouldn't go closer with those maybe once every 3 months at the most, but that's a continuous process. And on top, and some of those might count as inviting them to your next event, inviting them to your next class, sharing that awesome piece of content you just created, right? So if you look at it less as a follow-up plan and more like an audience you've got to nurture, an audience that you're building, an audience you're adding value to, I like that mindset a little bit better. Because these people are going to your audience, right? You have a whole year to build a relationship with by sharing content, by doing all these things with them. So, and that can be a text message, a phone call, it can be a newsletter. If you're supercharged and you're one of the top producers, it can be a Facebook group. It can be, all these different ways. It all serves the same purpose. Stay in front, stay top of mind, share value, and create reciprocity. Oh, hey, guess what? Greg is awesome, man. He does a great job. Well, Greg, I see you on Facebook all the time, man. I'm part of your audience, right? As a content creator, as a marketer, like I see you all the time. I'm listening to Facebook stories, your latest guests. I'm in that audience, right? I'm in the audience and I see you. And the algorithm knows that I interact with your content because it shows it to me. Every time something is new, boom, you show up either on my newsfeed or in that stories, in that first tier of those stories. And that's what you want. That's a great way to nurture. It's not just about calling and texting back. I wouldn't limit it to that, right? So yeah.
And likewise to that, Gus, by the way. So it's just a true practitioner, as you say what you're saying, you're doing these things. And that's why I love our conversations, because I know that you're coming from a place of doing what you say and what you educate others so well to do. And that's why I get really excited about this. And I appreciate you answering that question. It just popped into my head as you were going.
Absolutely. Yeah. It's both, right? You need both kinds of follow-up, but they're different. They're very different, right? The focus is very different. One of them is hard and heavy, got to get them to respond no matter what, right? One of our text messages when we would follow up with these folks was, hey, are you receiving these? Are you getting these? I might have the wrong number. Do I have the wrong number? It was just to get them to respond. We just wanted to start a conversation and see if we could go somewhere with them, right? And it's very different than the nurturing follow-up, which is only content-based value add, right? Content-based and value add. So it's a very different kind of an approach. But yeah, both of those are unbelievably important. And your conversion ISA, that's what they're implementing. That's what they're doing, right? They are talking to these folks and they're trying to get them to book an appointment, a live transfer, in-person appointment, or to go to that next event, right? So that's great.
Right.
So we're going to our second large section of these ISAs, blowing up your business with an ISA. The other role they can take in that mission, that goal, is lead generation focused ISA.
Got it.
Lead generation, right? And people are like, what do you mean, Gus? I mean, they're both lead generation. No. The reason I'm distinguishing these is because one is going to be working leads that you're generating some other way. Google, Facebook, Zillow, Realtor.com, doesn't matter to me. They're coming from a pipe and they're converting the things that are coming through that pipe. In the lead generation focused ISA, they are the pipe, right? They're making the calls to truly cold list, like the ocean. They're going to the ocean and they're finding the fish for you, right? And yeah, then the whole process, there's still a nurturing and conversion process, don't get me wrong, but they are creating the people that you're going to call the lead. They are generating it out of something that wasn't a qualified list of interested people. No, they're not going for that. They're going for something different, and they're generating the people that might be interested in buying or selling in the next whatever. That is what I mean by a lead generation focused ISA. They are doing lead generation activity, not conversion activity. And if that's not clear, drop a comment below. I can expand on that. But I think it's a fundamentally different activity, guys. As real estate agents, our first job is lead generation. Get new people into the database, people that weren't there before. Got to get them in, get them in. Understand that that's your number one activity. And then the conversion process starts, right? Of course. But the number one thing is get the lead in there in the first place, right? Get the lead in there in the first place. And in the online space, this is the Facebooks and the Googles and the Zillows and the Trulias. That's what they're for. That's what they are. But they're not the only ways to generate people into your database. They're not the only ways. And this is where outbound prospecting ISAs come to play. This is where they are. This is when we talk about that, right? This is typically your cold calling ISA. This is the role that they fulfill. They take the phone book and generate people that are interested in buying or selling real estate in that area. That's what they're supposed to do. That's what you want them to do. But that's not the only thing they can do. But that's the example I like. Grab the phone book. Do you consider the phone book leads? No, of course they're not, right? The phone book's the phone book. But and I know people, for the younger folks in the room, you don't know what a phone book is. Trust me, go with me. Indulge me in this analogy, but it is a huge book with everyone's name and phone number and address in it. This was a real thing, I promise you. And you're calling that, and you're finding people that are interested. You're trying to prompt them, get some motivation, and see where they're at, right? And try and see, are they thinking of buying or selling, or do they know anyone else thinking of buying or selling real estate in the next 6 months to a year, right? So it is a fundamentally different activity in a couple of important ways. Number one, you're not calling people that are in the context of buying or selling a home. Not really, right? So it is the ocean. You're calling them to even see if there's any motivation, to get from the very beginning and try and see if they're interested at all in buying or selling the home. That's typical, right? You want to get them and put them, and if they're interested, even slightly interested, or doing something a year out, they go into your list, because then you're going to nurture them in that list. You're getting started. You're getting them at an early point in the process, right? And that's a lot of what circle prospecting is. People might have heard that neighborhood farming, circle prospecting, neighborhood calling, whatever you want to call it. You draw a pin, you draw a circle around it, and you call every home in that area. And it might be because you just listed a home there, you want everybody to know. You just sold a home there, you want everybody to know. You're holding an open house there, you want everybody to know. Or a more typical scenario nowadays, you've got 15 buyers that want to buy a home in that area, and I'm working for my buyers, Greg. I'm calling everyone in this neighborhood to try and find someone to help out my buyers. Who do you know that might be thinking of buying or selling a home in the next 6 to 12 months, right? I just throw it out, and you've got that great motivation. I've got buyers chomping at the bit that want to move in there, because isn't it an awesome neighborhood, Greg? Oh, of course it is. You know what? Whatever it is, start the conversation, right? See if they're willing to interact with you, right? That's great. That's not the only thing you can do when it comes to outbound prospecting. I just talked about the phone book. Well, it might be more efficient, right? It might be more efficient to not call everyone that has a phone, right, in the world. But you might be, especially if you're looking for listings. This is for the listing agents in the room. This is more relevant to you. You might want to talk to people that are more likely to sell. And this is where the smarter targeting comes in, right? You could go, I don't know if you knew this, Greg, but you can go to your friendly title person that you work with, or you know, or is a friend or a vendor, and tell them, hey, I would love to know people in this neighborhood that have lived there for at least 5 years. I would love to talk to them, because that's the average turnover in a lot of neighborhoods. Can I get the information for the people that have been here at least 5 years? If it's a newer neighborhood, at least 5 years? Okay, great. If it's a more established neighborhood, right? Okay, can I get the information? And this is available in a lot of states. Can I get information for people to have 50% or more equity in their home? 50% or more equity in their home. Title can get you this. This is amazing. And in some states you can't. In a lot of states you can, right?
Yep.
If that information, if the mortgage and the automatic valuation is public information, boom, 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 they can generate what's called a high equity owner list, right? What does that mean? It doesn't mean they're going to sell, but if they sold, they're going to cash in. That's what that means, right? So you might want to bring them the good news. Hey, I see you've been living there for a while. Would love to see if you're thinking of selling, whatever. You can get an absentee owner list. Someone that owns a property in the city, lives outside the city, lives outside the state, might even live outside the country, right? You need a list of those folks. It might be worth your time to call folks that own that property as an investment, as a second home, as whatever it is, and see if they might be interested in selling a home in the next 6 to 12 months, right? You're doing the same activity, Greg. It's just that the lists, they get better, right? It's actually much more efficient to call high equity owners than calling the whole neighborhood. It's more efficient to call people that have lived there at least 5 years. Are they thinking of selling, versus calling anybody in the market, right? So it's just a more efficient way to do that outbound prospecting and then outbound cold calling. It's just a better way to do it. And I'm seeing a lot of folks, even in LabCoatAgents, look at the threads, guys. Well, I look at it because I love the topic, and Facebook knows that. But people ask about cold calling.
Yeah.
This is what the professional cold callers are doing, right? And this is what your outbound ISA should be doing. Calling these more targeted lists, because it's just a better way to connect with people and a better use of everyone's time. It is getting harder to cold call now than it was 5 years ago. The technology is better. The spam blockers are better. Everything makes it so much harder to do cold calling nowadays. Making it more efficient is unbelievably important. Michael, hey, love you too. I appreciate that, Michael. Thanks so much. Appreciate the comment.
He's right on that.
They flow like crazy, right?
Gus, Michael's right on that. Your ideas are incredible. The last couple of minutes when you're talking about reaching out to your title company, I will echo that over and over. If you are a real estate professional, your title rep should be giving you this information on a regular basis. And that is ammo for your staff, your ISA, the outbound ISA as Gus, or lead generation ISA as Gus had mentioned. Brilliant. Though, if you just did those things, you'd be bringing in revenue that wasn't there before. That's game changing, Gus. It really is if you implement it. But I wanted to ask you a question here, Gus, because I think this is important for so many people that are tuning in. Anybody who's watching this after the fact on YouTube, links and everything are going to be there. You have a very unique perspective, Gus, as a true pro. You've been there, done that, bought the t-shirt and then some, and you work with so many of the top producers around the world. If you, Gus, were starting over, brand new, right? Or you were a seasoned pro looking to take it up that next level, how would you do it? Because you had mentioned Conversion ISA, you had mentioned lead gen or outbound ISA.
That's a really good question.
What, Gus, seriously, like if we just ripped everything out from underneath you, kind of like Undercover Billionaire, right? And we just said, Gus, make $1 million in X amount of time. Like, what would you do as a real estate professional?
Oh, man, that's a really good question. So this is the context that goes into it, right? Because my budget would matter, right? As
Yes,
a
it
newer
would.
agent, you don't have any budget, right? It's like, hey, you know, you don't really have a ton of money to spend. So those prospecting activities that, you know, buying a list of, you know, 500 homes from your title company and getting them matched to phone numbers might cost, I don't know, $50, right? Might cost $70 to get a 500, you know, call list. And picking up your phone and calling them, how much does that cost? If you don't have a lot of money, you have a lot of time, right?
Well said.
So the outbound prospecting is probably the most cost-effective, you know, and scalable way to generate leads. It is the hardest way to generate leads, but if you don't have a ton of money, I hope you have a ton of time, because that's how any prospecting activity goes. Door knocking, cold calling, you know, however you want to call it, it's a grind. But if you have time, it is a very scalable way, because you can hand it off to an ISA. You can hand it off to a buyer's agent. You can hand it off to a listing agent later. You can have people conduct those activities at a relatively low cost compared to others. If I have a bunch of budget, Greg, right? Just an established player. Actually, I see this conundrum a lot. It's a dilemma. Established, we have a few minutes left, but I won't take too long, I promise. Established player that built their business on referral and recommendation. They've built their business. They have transactions happening every year. They're 6 figures and above income every year. They're happy, they're good, but they're not satisfied, right? They're saying, hey, I've got to build this up so I can become the leader of this team and not have to do every single role on the team in the future, right? So one of the ways, and if you have budget, one of the ways to do that is investing in an online lead generation. There is no better way to get results faster than investing in the right online lead generation. I don't think I have to tell you that, Greg, because you're a master at that, but that is an unbelievably efficient, which means take less time, not takes less money, takes less time, unbelievably efficient way to generate business and generate ROI, right? So again, I guess the answer to your question, Greg, is kind of, it depends. Yeah. I see a lot of folks that want to add and grow their business, they're established and want to grow. They've got to master online. They've got to figure it out. They've got to find a way to harness it, and they have the budget to do it, right? So from the start, from the get-go, they can have leads coming in, and their agents plus an ISA on the back end, making sure they don't forget anybody, no lead left behind, making sure they're converting at a really high level. And I've seen a lot of agents make that transition, and I've seen a lot of agents struggle with it because the lead generation part they solve, the conversion part, they want to convert them like they're sphere leads. They call them once and they expect a call back. They're not going to call you back, Greg. You got to call them again, and then call them again, and then text them again, and then send them an email, and then send them an invite. And that's a little bit of a transition for folks to go into online. That's just the name of the game.
Gus, thank you. You absolutely killed that. The wealth of knowledge that you just put on everybody is huge. And hopefully that was a helpful question for everybody. If they were thinking that, where am I at? How can I get involved with Gus and PowerISA? Or how can I build my team and grow? I think that's kind of sparking the thought process. And Gus, I did want to remind you, I just teased it out before the end here, but you do have a special promotion. So I wanted to remind you that and everybody on here, because this is just insane info. So I appreciate you, Gus.
Well, first of all, thank you, Michael. Thanks for being here, because he's a brand new client of ours. I appreciate that, man. Thanks for jumping in. And all of these things we just said, Michael, apply to you and your ISA too, man. I know you've got a specific lead source you want your ISA to focus on. That's not the only thing they can do. They can actually do a lot more than that. So anyway, so for everybody. But for everybody, Michael included, let's throw Michael in there too. For folks to sign up with PowerISA, to become a client, to jump in the next, in the next 7 days, in the next week, we're opening this up for the next week. We did this last time we were on, Greg, and we got a great response, actually. It was pretty awesome. Huge. It was like our end of month promo last month. And it did so well, we're going to carry it over again. But we're only announcing it here on LCA. The LCA, we're only putting it to LCA. I'm not putting it on my other channels, just for LCA folks. If you sign up with PowerISA for a full-time ISA, in the next week, I will book a one-on-one session with you, and we can brainstorm how we can help blow up your business in the next year, right? Wow. That's something I'm very passionate about. I love talking to folks. I love playing to their strengths and their budgets and their goals, right? So I'd love to sit down with you and talk and plan out something to blow up your business. I'm offering that for folks that are watching this, that use our LCA link. Jake, if you can drop that one more time. If you use our link to book a call and you book a full-time ISA, I will gladly sit down with you and do a one-on-one. Yes, Michael, I'm looking forward to that one too, my man. Don't worry about it. You're included as well. You're included. Well, grandfather and Michael. And anybody else that watches this, use our LCA link, PowerISA.com/LCA, book a call, sign up for a full-time ISA campaign, and I will happily take that call with you, and we can talk about lead generation, your business, lead sources, and what I see as the best use of time for your ISA to help blow up your business in 2022.
Gus, I can't believe that you're offering that, honestly, because just a few moments of your time, I don't even want to know if that's worth monetarily, but you're giving that to everybody, which I think is fantastic.
Well, now that you ask, I actually do consult, and it's $500 an hour.
Oh my gosh!
I'll take a call from someone. I'll talk to them, and I'll do this. Actually, the last person I talked to was like a private equity firm looking to buy some kind of CRM. And said, hey, Gus, can we talk to you? For sure. If you have $500. And they did. So I did it. So that was fun. But you know, that's what it costs. If you want to take my time, that's if I don't even know you, yep, that's what it costs. For my new clients, you're already investing with me. You know I can trust me and my company. Gladly they would do that for folks that are jumping out, especially if they're starting out with their ISA campaign. We want to do everything that we can to help make them successful.
Wow, Gus, that's huge. And again, the links are right here. They're going to be in the comments as well as in the chat right now. And for anybody who didn't catch the entire webinar live, it will be on LCA's YouTube channel. And with so many other webinars that Gus has done with LCA, I mean, the wealth of knowledge is incredible. So I encourage you to go back and watch every one of Gus's videos, because you can't get it. I can't get enough of this man. But
we need the Gus playlist, Greg. Can you make that happen?
I'm serious.
The Gus playlist on the LCA channel. That's
I don't know who we got to talk to, if it's Tristan or Nick, but we got to make that happen, because just back to back, have that
Jake
together.
Is the guy. He can make it happen. Jake can make the Gustavo playlist, and
I'll make Sandra do it.
The Gustavo playlist. There we go.
Jake said Sandra. There you go.
Sandra, we did it. We did it, team. Sandra, we signed you up, Sandra. You got some work to do.
Oh, I love it. Well, seriously, Gus, it's an honor and a pleasure, as always, my friend. And just the amount of knowledge and credibility that you bring to the industry is absolutely through the moon, through the roof. And I hope everybody out there in the LCA family and nation got some value out of this webinar, as always. And we just look forward to the next one. And Gus, I don't know what the next topic's going to be, but you just keep coming up with different things and value. And
here's the crazy thing. I get all my topics from you guys, the real estate, the loan officers, right? Their questions, their comments, and when I jump on calls with them, I still jump on sales calls every now and then, so I can get the pulse of the market and understand what people are doing. So I always love it when people reach out to me, ask those questions. You can drop a question here. If you're watching this on demand later, drop a question in the comments. I'll do my best to jump on it, answer it right away.
I love it. Gus, you're a true pro, and always a pleasure, my friend. I appreciate you jumping on and doing this.
Thanks a bunch. It's always fun.
All right. Take care, everybody. See you, Lab Coats.